What if I told you there was an ancient mystical order of women, witches, midwives, wise women, sorceresses, who throughout time practiced ancient mystical and tantric arts, learned how to amplify their own and each other's energy, and would you believe, perhaps even had an influence on the course of world events, right on down to this day? What if when the ancient temple of Astarte fell, there were those who knew that the coming patriarchy would try to blanket all these ancient teachings, but they managed to pass it down through time? And even now, while we find ourselves in a colonial patriarchal world or starting to come out of it, what if they're already at work mitigating the effects? We're going to continue our conversation about the power of love by diving into the legend of the Sisterhood of the Rose.
Welcome to a new paradigm, a new way of being, free from shame, self-limitation, or cultural programming. Welcome to a new you, a new world, full of endless possibilities. Welcome to your Tantric awakening. Hey everyone, thank you so much for being here. How are you today, Andre?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm great. I'm really excited to connect with you today, talking about the Sisterhood of the Rose and what does this actually mean for, not only couples that are here watching, but also just women, however you identify, because I know in this time, love is such an important topic of conversation. Everyone's talking about relationships. People are going through breakups. People are reinventing their relationships and expanding their personal ethos around that. And yeah, I'm just really excited to connect with you about the Sisterhood of the Rose today.
Well, it's a good time to do it. I mean, we just came out of Valentine's Day. We got a lot of feedback concerning our last episode about the power of love. Thank you to everybody who took the time to write in. Thank you for watching and your support. Please continue spreading the show so we can get the message out there. Share what you like. Let us know what you think. And yeah, we welcome your support and participation. But there was a lot of interest. We hit a note. It resonated. So we wanted to dive deeper into the power of love, and we thought what better way than to introduce the Sisterhood of the Rose. Maybe some of you are familiar with this term. Maybe it's new to some of you, but this is literally an order of women who dedicated their lives to studying and practicing love. Right? So how would you describe them?
Well, yeah, it comes down to love and Venus energy and understanding that we're all human at the end of the day. We're all human at the end of the day, and we all deserve and are worthy of receiving that. And so when I feel and I hear the Sisterhood of the Rose, I can think of a handful of times when I've been in sisterhood circle and receiving an impartation of like amazing roses that honestly smell amazing, right? We have our roses here today. And I was reminded of the rose being an activator of the heart, like receiving and giving, like from the back to the front of the heart. And yeah, when I think of the rose, I think of the yoni. I think of this direct channel from the roots of the earth and it rising through our bodies to our hearts and connecting with the energy of Uranus that's so beyond this space and dimension. So yeah, it's the highest frequency flower from what I hear. And when I think about roses, I feel they have this beautiful dance of not only are they beautiful, but they have thorns.
Ooh,
and when I
okay.
think about a thorn, I think about there's a beauty to it. Like it's almost like the witch's wound or the sisterhood wound that so many of us women experience and have experienced, and why so many of us are here in this day and age right now is we are here to reclaim our ancestral lines, and we're here to reclaim our womb power. Because when we reclaim our womb power, I truly believe is when the sisterhood of the rose awakens in a woman. Because that's what happened for me. It happened in a series of events that started from me understanding, you know, the womb at a core level, menstrual cycle awareness and magic, and, you know, connecting eventually with Mary Magdalene and her lineage, and, you know, the lineage of even her and Jesus and their daughter. And yeah, so there's so much to the sisterhood of the rose through the rose that's very personal. Yeah, I know. It's super personal to me because I understand the process it takes to really face our shadows. I consider myself very much connected with Persephone and the underworld priest as an underworld priestess, and it really reminds me even of this temporary tattoo of like the snake, and she's going up the rose or the stem, and she's meeting the rose, and she's being raw and vulnerable in her even in her weakness, right? And even in her feeling, I've been cracked open by love. Yeah.
Cracked open. Yeah. Because that's really the thing about love is it takes you for a ride. It does transform you. It does change you. You know, and you can almost use like love and magic interchangeably here. They're forces, right? They have the power to influence things, right? You can work with them. You can work against them, right? Things can become hurdles, or things can become what propels you forward. It's interesting that you mentioned Mary Magdalene, because she's thought to be not only a member of this order, of the Sisterhood of the Rose, not just a priestess, but there are passages in some of the Nag Hammadi texts where she's referred to as the high priestess. So she would have been the leader of the order in the time, which is, it sets up kind of an interesting balance too, because in the home, the matriarch is Mother Mary. But in the temple, the matriarch is Mary Magdalene and Mother Mary, the disciple. You know, they hold equal ground. It's not that one is above the other. It depends on the setting. You know, Notre Dame, the most notable of the dames, right? 2 towers, equal height, as are most churches that honor the feminine. Yeah, so there's a direct connection to this lineage that we're talking about. There's also a legend that Mary Magdalene wasn't promoted in this role, into this role. It was by birthright. It was by heritage. Some believe that she is a descendant, direct descendant of Isis herself. Right? She would have had a Phoenician mother, right? So that could fit. Right part of the world. She certainly wasn't white the way she's often depicted. Right? Or no, it was a Phoenician fisherman was the father. The wife was Ethiopian. Right. So she wouldn't have been white. And yeah, some believe she was a direct descendant of Isis herself, and that's why she served in the role of high priestess, just passing this ancient knowledge down from generation to generation.
Yeah, it reminds me of the words, and maybe you've heard this before, of like the Holy Grail, right? We've talked about this a lot, and I feel like there's a direct connection between when I was mentioning that the steps of that you go through in the journey. It's there's moments of remembrance. I feel like this journey is a moment, an understanding of we as women are portals. And there's something very sacred about that. And there's reverence attached to it. And I think right now why the Sisterhood of the Rose is not as common in modern day, and why it's just talked about on the news and out there, is because the Sisterhood of the Rose is committed to the nature of the heart, the condition of our heart. And I know for me, as part of this lineage, but also connecting with other Rose sisters, is that so many of us, and I see this a lot, so many of us are doing the work, and we see the nature of what happens when we're disconnected from the heart. It's almost like this frostbite around the heart, and it's like we're seeing it a lot in a lot of men in the world. And a lot of male leaders in the world right now are not connected to this magical group of women. And the thing is that, to me, the Sisterhood of the Rose does live on, and it lives in women like myself, and in men like yourself, who are so here to support and guard these ancient mysteries. And for me, when this came online and I remembered who I really was, that's when the priestess called. She was already calling. My highest self was like, you'll remember the call of the priestess. And yet when I met you, and I love that about our relationship, you and I met when at a really interesting time. I can even think about some of our earlier conversations, and you and I getting giddy. I remember being on the porch of the house that I was living on at the time in Oceanside, and I remember you and I met on we talked on Clubhouse for the first time, but then we talked after, and you and I were just giddy about Mary Magdalene. And exactly this. And I didn't even fully understand the complexity of the Sisterhood of the Road at that point, but I knew I was on a path. And so I have to give credit where credit is due, because Andre, you were a divine reflection of something of guardianship. There was a holy, like, oh my gosh, there's a man on the planet that understands like these topics, understands love, and I'll never forget that moment. But learning, student of, always evolving. But likewise, my beloved, you held a lot of the pieces of the puzzle too. It's like we came together, each holding a piece of the story, a piece of the puzzle, and I remember, we talked that you could call that the first episode we did together. We kept talking back and forth, and then after the show, called each other up and continued the conversation. Have been talking ever since. Honestly, and the thing is that you had, I'll never forget this. You sent me a picture of the Womb Awakening book. We both realized we both had the same book. And we're reading it at the same time. And it's literally so much about the Holy Grail. It's about the womb. It's very connected to the Rose lineage. And it's just, you know what it is, Andre? To me, the Sisterhood of the Rose is so stripped down. It's stripped down to its raw bones, our humanity. And if I could describe it, and I'd love to describe it when I think about the Sisterhood of the Rose, total raw vulnerability here. I see it as women who are here and ready, powerful, ready to reclaim their voices and rise and allow that heart energy to go to the throat chakra. And it's honestly why I'm here with you today, is because so many of us, our throats are locked down. We have been suppressed. Our voices have been banned off of certain websites. And so many of us, even a big part of my story was my voice was triggering for other people. And I know so many of you women probably can relate to that. And here's the thing. It's like, we are all divinely connected to the Sisterhood of the Rose. And it's raw bones is because it requires us to become our wild self, remember our wild souls. And another book, speaking of books, that really captivated me around this, that took me into like Carl Jungin's kind of deep place of the shadow realm, was The Woman Who Ran with the Wolves.
Okay.
And acknowledging that, like, to me, even when I think about Rose Sisterhood, I see the wild wolf. I see the woman that is just in nature, stripped naked and just howling at the moon because she's had this cosmic download with the moon, her inner emotional world. It's almost like she puts mud on her body and she's like, yeah, like, I am wild, I am free, and I am of the earth, and my blood returns to the earth. I give of myself. And I think that's the healing power right now. Like, that's what I call forth in the goddess and the woman here that's listening. Like, you are a powerful woman. You have a powerful voice. And the call of the rose is the call to come home to your power and stop giving it away to entities, organizations outside of yourself, even that partner. You don't need the external validation. It's time for you to give yourself that. It's time for you to reclaim your sovereignty, as Vesta, the goddess of sovereignty, calls us to. And she invites us in addition to like the energy of Juno in astrology. Juno in the cosmos did this really interesting dance around Valentine's Day, which is inviting us, what is your relationship to commitment? What is your relationship to expanding your experience of love?
Mm.
So, yeah, there's so much to that. And
You mentioned the Grail. I want to touch on this briefly. Some of you might be familiar with the Da Vinci Code and the other Dan Brown novels. What I can share from what I know of the teachings of the Templar Order, he got it about 98% correct. I mean, Harvard professor, okay, he really did his research. He's about 98% correct. You know, the Grail is not a cup. It's not some treasure. Well, it is a treasure, but not the way most people think.
Right.
You know, a jeweled golden cup. It's referring to the womb. It's absolutely referring to the womb. The one key ingredient, and I hope I don't offend anybody, you know, this is one group's beliefs and one group's tradition. The one thing that Dan Brown got wrong was that it's not the bloodline of Jesus Christ that is so revered and has been protected on down through the ages. Not diminishing his role, he was a very special, very powerful, very inspiring man, and he was very carefully vetted and selected for her. To protect and to guide her. It is her bloodline, you see, that actually the Templars have been protecting down through the ages. Because there are texts that refer to her as High Priestess. So she is suspected not just to have been a member of the Sisterhood of the Rose, because a lot of the things she practiced as a midwife are very similar to Rose lineage teachings, the healing arts that they practice. So no question that she was in the order, that she was a priestess, but there are writings that refer to her as High Priestess. Okay, so she was the leader, and it is believed that she didn't rise through the ranks to hold that title. It is believed that she got it by birth, because her bloodline is believed to be descended from the bloodline of Isis herself.
Yeah.
And she was simply the energy holder, the wisdom keeper for that time, for that generation. And like sisters have always done, she came together with a very powerful man who she knew together they could influence the world in the way that was needed at that time.
Love that.
By teaching love.
It's interesting because it reminds me of us. I mean, you know, culturally people celebrate Jesus's birthday around what time? December.
Yes.
And what's the truth there, though? He's more so likely born around
late March, early April, being a Pisces, if you go by the fact that 3 wise men followed a bright star, which was actually the Andromeda galaxy superimposed over a planet. It was more than one object. That's why it was so bright. They just happened to be in the same spot. If they went from Egypt to Bethlehem following that, they could have only done it in late March, early April, which would have made Jesus a Pisces. So actually Easter would be the celebration of his birth, if we go by astronomy. And the story of Christmas is also based in astronomy. It's the death of the sun, right? The winter solstice is the longest night, the shortest day. So it's the death of the sun on the 21st, S-U-N, not S-O-N, which is then reborn 3 days later on December the 25th, and the days start getting longer.
Yeah.
So I don't know why, but somewhere through time, those two got switched.
Yeah.
The stories got switched.
And that's why I'm so passionate about this space for us and for all of you that have been drawn to this, because, it's interesting, as a former Christian, one of the things that I always heard was the truth will set you free. But if the truth is not being fully told, that's where there's issues. And that's where I saw the discrepancy, because I was realizing, oh my gosh, as I'm reading the Song of Solomon, and it's talking about the way her breasts, describing eroticism, I was like, oh my gosh, like there's something awakening in me. And
what's this doing in the Bible?
What's this doing in the Bible? And I knew that I needed to follow that. And that's where I was like, wanting to understand my womanhood. And I think I said this in the last episode, was like, I was on this journey to reclaim my womanhood. And it's a journey, I was mentioning earlier, Vesta, for example. And Vesta is the goddess that deeply connects with our sovereignty. And with that sovereignty, she opposes the Juno energy in the cosmos. And Juno is all about commitment and about marriage. And so it's interesting, because I wanted to full circle this, thinking about Jesus and thinking about Piscean energy. You and I, and this is the beautiful thing about astrology, which I'm like, yes, to astrology. You and I together make a Piscean sun couple. The mystical nature of Piscean energy, the dreamer, is what we together have created as an entity, which is really beautiful, and a Virgo moon, which is so beautiful, because that represents the nodes of fate right now. Literally, we're in a fated hour, and we're in a place of integration and deep tantric union, which is what I love.
Yay.
And not only that, when we mentioned the word priestess and Mary Magdalene, she was a tantrika. She was a tantrika, and she was, I believe, she was helping men, women, understand, and everyone in between, understand that love is so worthy of being received. Like, we are love. And when we have an encounter with love in such a deep way, like in the body, and this is what I didn't feel as a Christian, like there was a part of me that felt disconnected from the body, but nonetheless, that I believe Mary Magdalene, as a Sisterhood of the Rose, was on a mission, a sovereign mission, to crack open the hearts of men.
Well, isn't that what the Sisterhood of the Rose has done throughout time? They studied the art of love. They studied feminine Shakti energy, cultivated it, perfected it, honed it. Right?
Oh.
And then they got around powerful men. They knew, since the time of the Astarte temples, they knew this time was coming.
Yeah.
Which is why they protected the secrets, which is why they taught each other and passed them down.
Yeah.
So then they got around powerful men who they knew, and this is still going on to this day, who would be playing a pivotal role in some part, some piece of history, right? And they used what they knew to crack their hearts open, to help guide them in the right direction.
I do have to say, though,
yeah,
with you specifically, because you are an embodied man, you understand the feminine and masculine. You're very healed in that.
But not because I'm special, to be clear. Not because I'm special. Because I've been taught by a lot of amazing and very patient women. Yeah.
Thank you to those women. That's awesome. Well, it's beautiful. Your softness, your tenderness is such a beautiful thing, and it's really helped me, you know, with your Taurus energy. It's helped me grow and heal at such a core level. And it's honestly, speaking of astrology again, like there's it's in astrology terms a release point in my chart that helps balance my energy. And so I'm so grateful for your Taurus energy. And yeah, I was getting to of like you beloved, you cracked me open. I mean, why I say that is because we met at such an interesting time of my life, but when I met you, it's like you had already been prepared. It was just like this wild, you had an encounter with the goddess. You understand the Sisterhood of the Rose, and you became very much a teacher. You taught me so much of what I know.
Well, I became a devotee.
A devotee, yes. Which,
quite honestly,
all of you deserve goddesses, queens. And this is the thing about the beauty of what I feel like Jesus and Mary Magdalene experienced. And maybe, you know, I've channeled Mary Magdalene before. But the energy that we bring is like that of, I truly believe what they did in ways. They really challenged so much of the status quo during that time. They were intimate. They were lovers. They were making love. They were doing sex magic. You know,
absolutely,
all the things.
All the things that now Christianity and religion try to suppress, interestingly enough, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. I remember watching a documentary with you about this, where like the temples, where like these temples where people used to come, men used to come after a long day out working, and
kingdoms.
They came to these temples to connect with priestesses like myself, and they received healing. You know, I have talked about powerful men. I've had so many powerful men. I've held so many powerful men in their most vulnerable moments. You've been there with me, you know, and it's so much. So what we're seeing right now is when people put defenses on, it's because a core need has not been met. You know, a core need has not been met, and therefore violent communication happens, you know, unfortunately, unless they learn.
Try to fill that need, to demand it.
Right, which we're seeing right now in you know, politics, and we're seeing male leaders that are integrated in the feminine cry, you know, in various, you know, meetings in front of people, like,
oh, at the Munich Security Conference.
Yeah,
like statement.
And we just watched that, and I was like, I feel for him, because we're all connected, and it's like that grief energy, and not even that grief energy, but why I feel there is an imbalance, and right now the snake is inviting us to shed, is because it's time for us to own our voices, to reclaim our voices in a deeper way, to not be afraid to do like a podcast or to talk to someone about your feelings and feel the things, you know. I talked with a woman recently a few days ago, and she's like, the biggest thing that's amongst like the sisterhood wound and like this witchy wound is like, so many of us are still in competition. And I think with the Sisterhood of the Rose, if we want the Sisterhood of the Rose to rise again, and to be the magical witches that we are at our core, we have to come across the table and also extend that hand to the men in our life. Because I've also noticed this, and I know I didn't plan to talk about this, but what I've been noticing, we've even talked about it briefly, is like, I, for one, I think about the Sisters of the Road, I think of Templar Knights, men like you who have been ordained into this to guard the Sisterhood of the Rose, to guard the Holy Grail, which is the womb, and honor it and worship it. Like, I feel like the Sisterhood of the Rose, if I'm being honest with you, is we're losing sight of what it means to connect with men like yourself who are here to protect that. And not only protect that, but be a voice in those spaces. Right? Like, I truly believe there's a reckoning and just a personal shift in my own world of like, yes, sisterhood, but also like extends that to the men who are here to like serve and love and honor the rose, honor the opening of the flower, right? Opening of the yoni. And I think that's why more than ever, why I'm so passionate about Tantric awakening and why I believe we're together is because it's time for so many of the yonis that are watching to open. So many of the hearts and the lingams and the whole body, right? If our bodies are suppressed and we're disconnected from our sexuality, what's going to happen is we're going to see more of that violence. We're going to see blood shed on the earth from war, from ceaseless wars. That so many women are this is why so many are angry. It's because of this thing. And to be quite frank with you, it's all about like, how long is my lingam more than your lingam? There's competition in that. And I think so many of the people are tired of that. I know I've been tired of it. And I'm like, priestess, like the role of the priestess is like, I want to hold temple space. I want to hold space, not only for myself, because I've done my inner shadow work and I've been initiated into a temple priestess order where I'm devoted. I've been called, but it's the priestess is here to hold space and to help our fellow brother connect to his heart again, because other women or other men have said that his femininity is wrong or somehow his emotions are too much. No. The priestess, that as a high priestess, how I stand in this, I stand in the reality of like, it's love is so expansive. Love is just, you can't even contain it. And if you try, it's not meant to. It's supposed to. And maybe you talk about this, Andre, of like, beloved, like temples were placed in certain positions. The ancient Egyptian temples were placed on purpose where they are to vibrate a frequency and connect and heal the community around them, because that's the power of life force sexual energy. That's the power of when people like you and I say, you know what, I'm going to devote myself to crack this heart chakra open. And it's time, you know?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. The people that we refer to as primitive, right, understood the universe on a level we're just now beginning to uncover and discover as we delve into things like quantum physics. Right? What's been passed down and called magic through the ages is really a very, very deep understanding of physics. It's not supernatural. They're very, very natural laws of the universe. They just seem supernatural because we don't fully grasp them, right? Anything that's not sufficiently understood, any science that's not sufficiently understood will be thought of as mysticism. That's how the old sayings goes. We did that with our ancestors. Absolutely. When they positioned the temples, they positioned them in key places where the energy literally comes out of the ground. The pyramids in Giza are placed this way. The pyramids in Mexico are placed this way. The temples in Cambodia and India are placed this way. They knew where the power spots were on the ground, and they built their holy structures there. They laid them out according to what they saw in the constellations of the sky. As above, so below. They knew you could channel that energy down into the earth by mirroring what you saw above you and their structures became the bridge between heaven and earth.
Mm-hmm.
And then they gathered inside to do their ceremonies. Absolutely. Yeah.
So I have a question for you.
Mm-hmm.
What would you tell a man who's watching and he's what you're saying of like, you know, you're a Templar Knight and he's wanting to like explore how to be a, you know, a guardian of these mysteries of like the sisterhood of the rose, which is the womb. Like, what would you say to that man who maybe he's tied in his heart, but he knows that there's more? Like, what would you tell him, man to man? Because I feel, and I've seen you do this, and I've witnessed you in your magic and connecting with men of like in temple, and I've seen you support men. Like, what would you tell that person right now? Because that's what I'm curious to hear.
If you're lucky enough to have a divine feminine in your life as a partner, and by the way, again, we're not talking gender, male, female, right? Mm-hmm. This could be a male-male couple. This could be a female-female couple. This could be, you know, anybody in between. It's the energies you embody, you know, and we both have both energies, but generally there's like a go-to. There's one that you embody a little more than the other. So if you're lucky enough to have someone in your life with that direct connection to the divine feminine, let me phrase it that way. I think that's far more encompassing of what I'm trying to say. Realize you are fortunate enough to have an oracle in your life. Mm-hmm. Learn what you can, support that energy, nurture that energy, mm-hmm. and learn all you can from it. And if you don't have a person like that in your life, then part of the reason you don't have that, realize, is because you've disconnected yourself from the divine feminine energy in yourself. Mm. You know, stop going to the bar. Stop catcalling people. Mm. You know, well, I'm not going to tell anybody what to do. I'm not going to say stop. But let's say this. If you catcall somebody and you meet somebody who is turned on by that and goes home with you and you do a little bit of friction body against body, nothing wrong with that. But like, if that's all your experience is, you're both kind of robbing yourselves of the possibilities. And instead, maybe humble yourself and walk in the world like the disciples, like the devotees did in the ancient world when they went on a pilgrimage to find themselves. Wander through the world with an open mind and an open heart, which is actually the original definition of meek. Those of open mind and open heart chakra, open third eye. Wander through the world with that wonder of a child. Connect, and how do you do that, right? You connect with your feminine, you connect with your playfulness. Receive the world. And when you really find that balance within you is when you will find it in an external partner. You know, we as men, we have been brought up that we have to like force our way through the world and prove ourselves and succeed and accomplish and conquer and all of that. That is an energy, that is one manifestation of the masculine, but I don't believe that's a fully healed, fully integrated version of the masculine, just like in the feminine. There's the integrated and the unintegrated, right? Yeah. There's the jealous, the competitive, the starter of catfights, right? But then there is the integrated, the priestess, the high priestess, the mother, the matriarch, the one who brings everybody together, right? And so it is with the masculine. You conquer when you are insecure. Right? It's the bully. You're not building a community, a society, and becoming the protector of it. The father figure, I guess. Mm-hmm. There's an integrated, there's an unintegrated, you know. So you can't look for in another what you haven't cultivated in yourself. I mean, you can, but it's probably going to be off balance. It won't last long.
Yeah, I think so many of us can catalyze each other. You know, like, I can think of so many of experiences where I've been catalyzed. You've catalyzed me many times, and then it sent me into this, like, reflection, and I went into the shadow work, and was like, oh my gosh, I've been, you know, bypassing this part of myself, and I got really clear with myself, and I really feel, yeah, there's so much nuance to this, right? I know, if I were to talk to someone or a man that is maybe not as familiar with this kind of world of, the sacred sisterhood of the rose or womb work, and maybe you're in a relationship and, that's not something that, womb worship is not something that you do. Permission to be where you're at is a great start, I would say. And also, like Andre is very much alluding to and connecting around, is like, nurture your feminine energy yourself. I would give yourself permission, like even these flowers, for example. Roses are very feminine in nature, though they have thorns on them. They're very feminine. And as someone, for example, Andre, you're a Taurus sun, and Venus is actually in Taurus for you, which is a very sensual sign. Very, very much, the word that comes to mind is aphrodisiac, and just being able to slow down even and be so intentional, which you are a very intentional lover, and I love it. But it's like,
yeah, I do
feel like the Taurus men, and I'm just speaking from experience with you, but like observations as well. You're in touch. You're in touch with like Mother Earth and sensuality, feeling like massages. I know you love, like just being able to be in hedonistic energy is just so nourishing to you. Like it's not about getting to an end goal or orgasm. It's like you are just about being in the moment. And I think that in itself is truly, just beautiful. And what I feel men need is just to be in their feelings, like, and allow and receive. And I love seeing that when you do receive as a priestess. That's one of my greatest, like, when I see you receive and pleasure and all of it.
I think the word, if I was to sum up Taurus, or at least this Taurus's energy, indulge.
Even your voice.
I love to indulge.
Mm-hmm.
Wine, women, song. Like, I love music. Music brings me to tears sometimes. I don't drink alcohol, but like other substances, I like things that increase sensitivity rather than decrease sensitivity.
Psychedelics.
Literally, like, touch, play, energy, exploration. Like, indulge. Savor is another word that comes to mind, which is why I was drawn to Tantra. Like, I decided early on I'm going to savor as much of life as possible and indulge fully in it.
Yeah. It's
ethical hedonism.
Ethical hedonism and play. I think when we forget to play, and whatever that looks like, we forget to just, there's a disconnection that happens. And I know, like, even the last few days, we went to a dance studio, Valentine's Day, and we danced for a few hours. Created a little dance studio, which is coming soon. But it was just like us trying something new, something fresh, exploring. And I really enjoyed that moment together. Yeah, playfulness.
Yeah. Something else about the placement of temples. To bring this back to that, these temples where the Rose Sisters practice their healing arts. We know in ancient Egypt, for example, which we believe the predecessors to the Templar Knights were the Jedi Order. Yes, there is such a thing in ancient Egypt, DJEDI, and they'll get their own episode coming up, I'm sure. But these were the ancient wizard knights of Egypt. And the Sisterhood of the Rose, like their stories are always interwoven, and in these ancient temples where these healing arts were practiced, these temples were also geographically located in the cities, usually near the government offices. the schools and or the prisons.
Right.
Most often, because they were aware that the healings that took place inside didn't just affect the seekers, the people who came to the temple for healing or for advice, right? Even in ancient Greece, right? The kings and the politicians would go and consult the oracle at Delphi. You know, I'm pretty sure she was a rose priestess. It's the same kind of thing. They knew that this energy generated there also radiated to the outside, affected the outside world, the surroundings as well. And like what comes to mind is it's, you know, these aren't just ancient stories from the mists of time. What comes up for me, another film we recently watched, I guess a series, 𝗏 right? About a woman who influenced more than one world leader during the first ever World War. You know, she traveled between Germany and France, and some say she even influenced Woodrow Wilson, who was originally against joining the war, into bringing the United States into the war. A lot of her actions, and she learned, you know, ancient temple dances of Indonesia, right? Sounds like a rose priestess.
Well, the baseline of it, she utilized what she went through, which was really difficult, separation from her daughter. And I mean, patriarchy was just rampant at that point. Like, it was very similar to the energy of like so much of what we see today. And she took her power back by learning the art of seduction, which I definitely feel is an important topic. Honestly, we could do a whole episode on that art. But the art of seduction and the art of the art of just using what the goddess gave you in order to make a point or express yourself. More than ever, we're in a time where expressing yourself is just so revolutionary. I mean, censorship is like up the roof at this point. I know I can't go on Instagram Live because of censoring. Like, so many of us are being silenced, but now is the time. And it's like, what I love about 𝗏, because I resonate with her a lot, because I dance and I've used the art of seduction. I used it to seduce you. You can go back in the timeline on our Instagram and I know exactly which video I sent it to you. I was like, I know what I'm doing. And it was because I was in my power and I'm still in my power. And yet there's a new layer of that, like 𝗏, and a resurgence of that energy of, you know, even with the rose and, you know, the rose, I would love to even hear, before I kind of express a little bit around Venusian energy. Can you tell us about the Venus and the rose and how that orbits the sky or anything around that? Because I'm not familiar with all the information there. Okay,
so and to explain this kind of touches at the heart of like the origins of the sisterhood, at least as far back as we're able to trace it. You know, we're aware of the stories in Egypt, the temples in Egypt. Thoth, who brought a lot of these ancient teachings to Egypt, who in later cultures was referred to as Hermes, he identified himself as a priest of Atlantis, who came from a faraway land and brought these teachings to Egypt. So he might have been one of the survivors. So if he brought that knowledge from Atlantis, it would stand to reason that the sisterhood goes back as far as Atlantis. But you're right, there is a connection to Venus. So basically, the rose specifically, the way it's drawn is 5 intersecting circles, concentric circles. The 5 petals of the rose. It's a 5 pattern that just repeats over and over into the spiral. Just like the pentagram, the 5 elements, earth, air, fire, water, spirit. But also the planet Venus, the way it and the earth dance around the sun together, they're not a circular orbit, okay? it actually forms 5 concentric circles, or in other words, the 5 petals of the cosmic rose. But here's where it gets interesting, Kendall. You see this shape? You don't see the shape from the earth. You have to be a ways away from the earth, looking back at the earth and Venus and the sun. In other words, being outside of our solar system, looking into the center of our solar system, looking into the sun to see this particular shape or have an awareness of it. You have to be outside our solar system. And if you look really closely at the star map, that's the constellation of Scorpio that you see behind the 5-petaled cosmic rose. And if you're looking at Scorpio behind our sun, that means you have to be on the opposite side, which would be Taurus. So whoever brought this awareness of the 5-petaled rose to our planet must have originated from the constellation of Taurus. Now, that's a big chunk of space. There's a lot of stuff there.
Wow.
But one thing that comes to mind that's located in the constellation of Taurus is the Pleiades, smack in the middle of the constellation Taurus, which is also known in ancient cultures as the 7 sisters.
Ooh, that's sexy.
Right.
Knowledge is sexy.
Well, thank you. But, think about that. The Sisterhood of the Rose, or at least their knowledge, could well have off-world cosmic origins that are far older.
Do you know more about that 7 sister thing?
Well, that's the 7 stars that make up the Pleiades. Every culture, ancient culture, refers to them as the 7 sisters.
Wow. To look into this. Well, speaking of sisters, I recently had this download that I wanted to share here of Venus at the center of everything. Venusian energy is why we're here. These flowers, yeah, this is why we're here, because we're here to be cosmically seduced by the rose. We're here to have a Venusian, it's just, Venus is in my Pisces first house. So this is a huge part of me. Oh, there's Isis. But Venus is the center of everything. Venus is, if I look at a chart, and I'm reading this book around goddess asteroids, which asteroids are supportive of the planets, the major planets. But when I found out that there's more to the story than Venus and Mars expressing someone's erotic palette or sexuality or the way they receive and give love, right, is when I acknowledged there's more to the story. And I'm still on what you just mentioned, the 7 sisters, because if there's 5 petals to the rose, I'm directly connecting this what I'm about to share, which is Venus is at the center of, if you were to visualize this with me, Venus at the center, the sun and the moon are magnetized to one another. And around them, they're in a circle, right? So you have, it's like a triangle with the top and then the 2 sides pointing down. So you have the sun and the moon on the top corners. Then you have Venus at the bottom. So they're creating kind of the womb portal temple. That's how I see it. And then there's the axes. There's the north, the east, south, west, and these are connected to certain goddesses and what they represent. Because here's the thing, talking about Tantra, the astrological plane, the cosmic plane, literally shows us Tantra, literally shows us the weaving of energy up the spine. It shows us you were just talking about the nodes of Scorpio energy and Taurus energy. So that means that's an important energy to integrate. You have very much both. That's why we're connected. I have Scorpio, multiple planets in Scorpio, Pluto conjunct in the 9th house. So anyways, when we're looking at a chart, we're looking at these 4 goddesses, and we're looking at Juno, we're looking at Pallas Athena, Ceres, and also Vesta. And why this is so important, beloved, is because I'm making that connection of the 5 petals are these 5 major feminine goddesses.
Oh.
the rose is actually represented by this code. And yes, I just made the connection live. And I want to describe all of them.
So,
yeah.
Before you do that, real quick. So, if there's 5 cosmic goddesses and there's 7 sisters, that makes 12 disciples in all, does it not? So, the movie Mary Magdalene does a really great job of presenting the Tantric healing arts, actually. The 2018 film with Rooney Mara and Joaquin Phoenix is actually more tantric than a lot of people realize. If you think about the very beginning of the film, right, there's a woman giving birth and all the midwives have tried everything they know, all the techniques, all the herbs, the medicines, and nothing's working. This woman's screaming in pain. And then young Mary Magdalene comes and lays down by her side and eye gazes with her. Right? And that's where finally the woman calms down and her pain subsides. Throughout the film, there's this interplay between Jesus and Mary Magdalene. Whenever one of them needs support, the other one is there as their strength and eye gazes with them. I don't want to spoil the movie for you, but most of us know how the story ends. And even when Jesus is up on the cross at the end of the film, she's at his feet, eye gazing with him. The movie begins and ends with eye gazing. It's a very tantric portrayal. So it backs up this story that she studied these healing arts, as I suspected Matahari, as Cleopatra, another powerful woman who paired herself with a powerful man, right? Julius Caesar, right? She studied the art of seduction. She came by his side. And boy, if he would have listened to her and not gone to the Senate that day. So you see how all throughout history, the women who studied these healing arts, these tantric arts, the Sisterhood of the Rose, throughout history, they have been using the power of love to steer the course of events. And I believe this is an energy that, you know, when you look at the state of the world today, I don't want to say to a large part has been missing, but has been in the shadows, in the wings. And it's time for these sisters to rise up again. Start teaching each other these ancient arts, doing these sacred practices like you mentioned. Majida, who for a time was the high priestess of the Ethiopian temple, literally holding the position today in our modern times that Mary Magdalene did back in the day. You know, she was a guest on a prior episode of Tantric Awakening. And I'll never forget what she said. She said, if more women followed the ancient ways and buried their blood in the earth, men wouldn't have to spill it. So, you know, part of the reason we're doing this episode, part of the reason we're doing this whole show, you guys, is so if you've been connecting with some of these codes, know that you're not imagining it. Know that you're not crazy. Know that you are not alone. Right? We are here to support you.
Yeah, I agree completely. I think this space is truly whatever you make it, right? I feel like we coming out of our curtain call and we're returning and we are proudly representing that which we've gone through and also acknowledging that we're still growing and learning individually, but also as a couple. And I think that's the power of this journey and what love has cracked me open to be. It's been this constant, what's the word? Flow of being cracked open, facing some part of myself that has told me that I'm not love in some way, and then reclaiming that. And I just truly desire for everyone here, just to know that you are loved, to find that love within yourself. Because no matter what is going on outside of you, like, you get to give yourself that love that maybe you've given away to others and didn't receive anything in return. And like love is truly available for us within our own bodies. You know, the love of the breath, like the love of the finding the joy and the appreciation that your heart beats for you when you're not even conscious of it. Like the little things. And to me, that's what love asks of us, to be aware, to become aware of these little things that are truly loving you in every single moment. Like love is truly why we're all here. Like it's truly a miracle. When I think about love and I think about us and I think about how we manifested this and how we're just putting ourselves out here, it's like, it's because we found a place within ourselves that knows that love also shares. Love considers the other. Love is, oh my gosh, I know that love has touched me in such a profound way, even when I've, made mistakes, or even when I'm, facing a part of myself that's very difficult. Like love truly is a force that can touch anyone. And that's what I love about love, is that it's the great heart expander. And my invitation to all of you is to allow yourself to be cracked open, to not grow weary and I've felt discouragement at times, don't get me wrong, but like right now, and this is what a fellow goddess encouraged me in the other day, it is time for the priestesses, for women like you and I, to reclaim this path so that we bring the temple outside the temple walls. And this is as someone that has been in this space for a while, has been a sex educator, that has been a voice for people around intimacy, right? Holding, powerful men in my arms as they weep and as they cry and as they show their inner child and they feel their emotions. Like the temple priestesses, it's not only just for temple culture, which we're revolutionizing. I feel like we're a big part of that, making sure that these spaces are safe, that there's proper aftercare and integration. But it's that we individually in our day-to-day lives are really being nurtured in fellowship with each other around these sacred mysteries. Because what happens when these mysteries are not told, when the stories are forgotten, that's when there's a disconnect. That's when we see what we're seeing in society, which is the forgotten art of passing down stories from mother to daughter, from grandmother to daughter, you know what I mean? So the mystery is truly found in the vulnerability. And so many of us, and I'll be the first to say, I've been afraid of vulnerability a lot of my life. And that's because I was putting up a mask and I was trying to believe a storyline that wasn't fully mine to have. And so I just encourage you to just continue, just to walk the path. And we're here, we're available. I'm so grateful to you. Like love, like just thinking about Valentine's Day, like, dang, we did it. We got to this point. And I'm just so excited for all the doors and the people we're going to meet through this too. I can think about just all the ethical hedonism we're going to explore, all the spaces we want to cultivate for people, for couples. I mean, seriously, like all that we've gone through, like it's powerful and hasn't been easy. It's been a journey.
It's not for the faint of heart.
It's definitely not for the faint of heart, but is love easy? No. I mean, I don't know. Would you say love's easy? I mean, it's
Is self-love easy? I mean, it's not always with the other person. Is self-love easy?
Right.
Is love and union with the divine easy? None of it's easy.
It's, I don't know if easy.
And yet it is, and yet it is, and yet it is, and yet it is so simple and easy. I think it's our mind, our ego, our resistance that can make it difficult at times.
Yeah. And maybe that's why, you know, I feel so grateful to you, because you have helped guide me, supported me in my evolution, and shown me pathways. I mean, I'm so excited. I think I mentioned it earlier, maybe in another show. It's like, in the power of like psychedelics, and like the power of when you are able to get out of your overthinking brain, like so many people I see, or when we get into the body and the heart, like things shift. And when you find love, not you just find it, feel it so deeply at your core that you are love, like you start walking differently in the world. And so, yeah, so grateful for this conversation today. It's amazing.
I mean, this is what we're in the middle of. Yeah. Literally, the love revolution, the evolution
2.0. Because last time during the season, wasn't there like the revolutionary, like the French revolution?
Well, that's kind of what I was going into. The bigger alignment, you know, the shift of Pluto, which is generational. It's like 200 some years, combined with its position relative to Chiron, the wounded healer, and then Jupiter, the planet of destiny and dharma and expansion. This particular alignment of these three objects, the last time it was seen over America was the French and American revolutions. Wow. It was also present in the sky during the fall of the Roman Empire.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. I mean, to me, it's both. You know, it's, yeah, I think it's both, because it's the dance between, I mean, government, and then not only government, but the individual. Like right now, I feel like there's just a reckoning of each of our individual voices.
The world's going to go through a shift, and the sisters are needed once again.
Yeah.
To hold people's hearts through it. That's the point. It's time for the sisterhood to rise once more.
Yeah.
I feel it.
Yeah. And for, you know, for not only women to hold the hearts of others in the sense of extending that love in the divine feminine, but each of us taking personal responsibility for our own well-being and really becoming really vulnerable with how you speak to others, how do you speak to yourself, evaluating how you communicate to somebody else, evaluating how you are loving yourself, or maybe can love yourself better. Like this conversation, and just even the Sisterhood of the Rose, is really like coming back to, are you loving yourself? And then from there, allowing that to extend to other people. Because I've learned the hard way, like when you are giving from an empty cup, it can lead to bitterness and frustration. But when you're full of your own love and your self, your identity, your sense of self is strong, and you know who you are, what happens outside of you is just, it's just an energy, and you can allow things that are not in resonance to just fall off your back, right? Because each of us is just here trying to have a human experience. And my call is just, we all just, let's just be kinder to one another, love one another. Just, you know, just, it's in the little things. Start small and allow it to expand, and allow love to reach wherever it needs to reach. So thank you guys for listening, and I'm so grateful.
It's a beautiful way to bring it home.
Yeah.
Yeah. It really is. Thank you so much for tuning
Yeah.
in to the Tantric Awakening podcast, you guys. If you want to get in touch, if you want to give us your feedback on this show or suggestions, questions for future shows, you can find my darling, beloved, beautiful partner Kendall on Instagram at the Tantric Mystic with an underscore on the end, the Tantric Mystic underscore. You can find me at Andre Knight Awakening, and you can find Tantric Awakening at tantric.awakening, all on Instagram. And our home base is tantricawakening.net. Depending on when you listen to this, you might discover an under construction screen to welcome you. That's because we're busy adding community features to the website and getting ready for the relaunch of the 2.0 version of the website. If you encounter that, please come back and visit. Very shortly, there will be a contact form where you can join the waiting list to join that community when it's ready to launch. And maybe by the time you listen to this, the community will be up and running. But Instagram for now, and then eventually tantricawakening.net is how you can find us. And we will see you next week.
Bye, everyone.